Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Let's get started.
I'm delighted to announce that I will visit India next month to strengthen our friendship.
For advancing our shared values and promoting
The Prime Minister of Britain has a new vision document. It's called Global Britain. And at the centre of this vision is India. Today, Boris Johnson unveiled his plan. In about a month from now, he will visit India, the 26th of April to be precise. The focus is the Indo-Pacific, the new nerve centre of geopolitics and global growth. After a difficult Brexit, London is looking for new markets and new partners. India and other powers in the region fit the bill. But to do business here, they need a free and open Indo-Pacific. In other words, they need to deal with the threat posed by China. So Boris Johnson comes with an offer of friendship for India. But will he be able to woo New Delhi? We ask this because in the past few weeks, London has repeatedly meddled in India's affairs, debated Indian laws and issues in the British Parliament. Can it win over India as an ally without respecting its political and diplomatic boundaries with India? On Gravitas tonight, we'll discuss all of this. Also on the show, more countries suspend the rollout of AstraZeneca vaccine, citing safety concerns. Experts say there is no link between the vaccine and blood clots. China cracks down on corporates and tech giants, both domestic and foreign. What is the strategy behind Beijing's latest moves? Defense and foreign ministers of Japan and the US meet to deepen their alliance. At the focus of the talks is the threat posed by China. And Iran unveils what it calls a missile city, a new base of its Revolutionary Guards. We'll show you the pictures. We begin as always with Gravitas Global Headlines.
India has set a single-day record of over 3 million vaccinations in a single day. Over 10 million citizens over the age of 60 have been vaccinated in the first 15 days of March. Meanwhile, US-based biopharmaceutical firm Ocugen will partner with India's state-backed COVID-19 vaccine Covaxin to sell 100 million Indian vaccine doses in the US in 2021. As Myanmar nationals flee the country following the coup and the military crackdown, reports say more than 400 Myanmar nationals have crossed into India since late February. Majority of them policemen and law enforcement officers. Food and fuel prices are soaring in Myanmar. The United Nations World Food Programme has warned of a very serious crisis if the political crisis intensifies. News Corp has reached a content supply deal with Facebook in Australia, making it the first major media outlet to strike a deal with the social media giant under the controversial Australian news law. News Corp owns about 2/3 of Australian newspapers. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has picked his fourth health minister since the coronavirus pandemic began. Marcelo Queiroga replaces Eduardo Pazuello, who has faced intense criticism for Brazil's slow vaccine rollout. Pazuello's two predecessors left the position amid disagreements with Bolsonaro over handling of the crisis. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Prime Minister of Finland, Sanna Marin, held a virtual summit with a focus on key areas like clean energy, trade and investment. The Indian Prime Minister has extended an invitation to his Finnish counterpart to visit India. Clashes erupted in Amman between anti-riot police and hundreds of protesters who were rallying against an evening curfew in the Jordanian capital, angered by the death of 7 coronavirus patients at a hospital due to a shortage of oxygen supplies. Protesters have also called on Prime Minister Bashar al-Assad's government to step down. Nokia has said it plans to cut up to 10,000 jobs within the next 2 years to trim costs and invest more in research capabilities as part of its restructuring plan. Pakistan's opposition parties held a meeting as the opposition alliance remains divided on the issue of mass resignations, while the PMLN and JUIF has insisted on mass resignations before the long march scheduled for March 26th. PPP, or Pakistan People's Party, has said that the opposition should not cede ground to the ruling party. PPP co-chairman Asif Ali Zardari has refused to resign from the National Assembly. Zlatan Ibrahimovic has been recalled to the Sweden squad 5 years after announcing his retirement from international football. The 39-year-old scored a record 62 goals in 116 internationals before quitting after the team's Euro 2016 group stage exit. He opened the door to a return in November last year, and head coach James Anderson has now included the AC Milan striker in the squad for the World Cup qualifiers against Georgia and Kosovo later this month. Lionel Messi marked his record-equaling 767th appearance for Barcelona with a brace in a 4-1 win over Huesca in the Spanish league. The 33-year-old joined his former teammate Xavi Hernandez at the top of the club's all-time appearance list and even grabbed an assist in the rout of the bottom-placed side. With 11 games remaining, Barcelona are just 4 points behind La Liga leaders Atletico Madrid.
Boris Johnson is coming to India next month. The British Prime Minister was supposed to visit in January, but the pandemic worsened in the UK and the visit had to be called off. It's back on his schedule now. Johnson will visit New Delhi on the 26th of April. He also plans to travel to the city of Pune. This will be his first major international trip after Brexit. It will also mark a new beginning. London is reshaping its relationship with the world. So if you're watching us in the UK on Sky tonight, this story is for you. Tonight on Gravitas, we'll talk about Boris Johnson's plans for the UK, his post-Brexit strategy, why India is a key part of it, and why convincing India for an alliance might not be all that easy this time. First, let's tell you about the purpose of the visit. Recently, the British government conducted a major review of its security, defence, development and foreign policy. It's a 100-page document. It basically spells out Boris Johnson's vision for the UK. Here's what it says. Johnson wants a major foreign policy shift, a quote-unquote tilt to the Indo-Pacific. And the road to that goes through India. The British government says the purpose of Johnson's trip is to, and I'm quoting again, unlock opportunities in the region. It is planning multiple engagements. First, Johnson is coming to India. Then he has invited India for the G7 summit. Now remember, India is not a part of the G7 or the group of 7 countries, but the summit is going to be held in the UK this summer. And as the host country, Britain has extended an invite to India.
I have invited the leaders of Australia, South Korea and India to attend the G7 summit in Carbis Bay in June. And I'm delighted to announce that I will visit India next month to strengthen our friendship with the world's biggest democracy.
So the UK is out of Europe, and after Brexit, it is trying to rebuild its relationship with the rest of the world. Going by reports, Johnson wants to project the UK as a force of good. He wants to champion global action and democratic values, which is why he wants influence, more influence in the Indo-Pacific. Johnson's review calls the Indo-Pacific, quote-unquote, increasingly the geopolitical center of the world. It's a good assessment, we say. It also explains why the UK is moving a warship to this region. Earlier this year, London announced its plans to deploy a new carrier strike group led by HMS Queen Elizabeth. This is a 65,000-ton, 280-meter-long Royal Navy Fleet flagship. Reports say it has a flight deck that can carry up to 40 aircraft. Now, why does the UK need a warship in the Indo-Pacific? You see, the UK has left the European Union. It needs new trading partners. It has applied to join the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is a trade agreement. It is between 11 countries, including Australia and Japan. Britain wants to join this group, this trade group. And these countries face one common challenge: China's aggression in the Indo-Pacific. So here's the thing. Any trade relationship requires free and open trading routes. Now, countries in the Indo-Pacific see China as a threat. If the UK wants to join them, it will have to prepare, which is why it is sending a warship to these waters. It is now in the UK's interest to ensure that the Indo-Pacific remains free and open. According to a report, the United Kingdom has moved to strengthen security cooperation with several Indo-Pacific countries. It is working on stronger defense ties with Japan. Also members of the FPDA, the Five Power Defense Arrangements. This list includes Australia, Malaysia, New Zealand and Singapore. The FPDA is a series of defense relationships. They were established through a series of multilateral agreements between these countries. So in simpler words, the UK is coming closer to the major players in this region. The UK also maintains military outposts in Brunei, as well as a naval support facility in Singapore. So the signs are clear. Boris Johnson wants a bigger role for the UK in the world, and he is betting Britain's future on the Indo-Pacific. In December last year, the UK's Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab had said, and I'm quoting again, "If you look at India and the Indo-Pacific region and take a long-term view, that is where the growth opportunities will be." So London plans to woo New Delhi to become a key stakeholder in the Indo-Pacific. And as we discuss this visit to India, we must also understand the British Prime Minister's style of politics. Boris Johnson is a personality politician, the kind that Britain has not seen or not known since Winston Churchill. And much like Churchill, he's trying to shape the United Kingdom in his own image. Look at the blueprint that he unveiled today, the Integrated Defence and Security Review. Addressing the House of Commons this evening, Boris Johnson announced a sweeping overhaul of Britain's domestic affairs, defence, diplomacy, international priorities, a revamp that reflects the Prime Minister's freewheeling and disruptive personality. It lays out a more activist approach to international relations. It redirects London's foreign policy towards the Indo-Pacific. At the same time, it also lays out a plan to lift the cap on the number of nuclear warheads that the UK can stockpile, and a plan to outlaw can cause serious unease or annoyance. Is both consequential and controversial. Team Johnson is billing it as the most wide-ranging re-evaluation of the UK's place in the world since the end of the Cold War. How accurate is this assertion? Our next report explores.
The overriding purpose of this review, the most comprehensive since the Cold War, is to make the United Kingdom stronger, safer and more prosperous, while standing up for our values.
It's an ambitious new chapter for the United Kingdom on the global stage. The Integrated Defence and Security Review promised to make the UK a global force once again, but without any old obligations. Here are 4 areas of interest and importance.
Biggest democracy.
The Chinese regime has been recognized as the foremost state-based threat to Britain. Speaking in the House of Commons, Boris Johnson singled out China as a country that will pose great challenges for the free British society. But he was notably cautious and measured in his statement. He also promised to work with China, where it is consistent with British values and interests.
That China will pose a great challenge for an open society such as ours. But we will also work with China where that is consistent with our values and interests, including building a stronger and positive economic relationship and in addressing climate change.
The Integrated Review also sets out a significant foreign policy shift, like the tilt to the Indo-Pacific. The Queen Elizabeth carrier will undertake its first operational deployment in the region. In April, the British Prime Minister will travel to India, and he's also looking to build a Quad-like alliance with Southeast Asian nations. With the G7 presidency in its hand, the UK has invited India, Australia and South Korea to attend the G7 summit scheduled for June this year.
Invited the leaders of Australia, South Korea and India to attend the G7 summit in Carbis Bay in June.
Some controversial decisions have also been taken, like a nuclear stockpile upgrade. Britain is lifting the cap on the number of Trident nuclear warheads 40%. This decision, increased limit from 180 to 260 warheads, is largely aimed at building the goal of reducing its nuclear stock to offer post-law on protest. What kind of protests will be allowed? Any protest which is noisy or causes serious annoyance will be outlawed. The law will also limit the right to protest outside the British Parliament. It will provide police officers with significantly greater power. From global priority overhaul of British policy in a generation. Boris Johnson has led the roadmap for a post-Brexit Britain. Whether he will be able to get the UK to the desired destination remains to be seen. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
It all comes down to one question. Is the United Kingdom standing up to the threat from China? Well, it is. The signs have been clear for some time now. Let's rewind to the summer of 2020. Reports emerged that Chinese telecom giant Huawei would be stripped out of Britain's 5G phone networks. China considers Huawei as its stairway to tech dominance. The UK considers it a threat, a quote-unquote high-risk vendor. The Huawei ban was formalized in November 2020. 2027 is the deadline to phase out Huawei equipment from the 5G network. The Trump administration obviously back to the question, what does Britain get by taking a stand against China? What encouraged Boris Johnson to say that China, quote-unquote, will pose a challenge for an open society? Think about it. The United Kingdom does not have a border dispute with China. It is neither engaged in a trade war with Beijing, nor does it have territorial disputes with the dragon in the South China Sea. Why then is Britain standing up to China? Perhaps to stay relevant and to secure future business interests. Let me explain. The UK here is killing two birds with one stone. One, by standing up to China, Boris Johnson is showing the world that the UK is a global player even without the umbrella of the European Union. And number two, standing up to China also allows the UK to shift focus to the Indo-Pacific, a region that Britain very rightly described as the geopolitical center of the world. The United States has deployed its supercarrier, the Nimitz, to this region. Europe's biggest player, Germany, has announced the deployment of its naval frigate to Japan. Not focusing on the Indo-Pacific would mean being left out, and Boris Johnson does not want that. So he's now shifting focus to the region. And like we mentioned, the road to the Indo-Pacific goes via India, which explains why Boris Johnson chose India for his first major international visit post-Brexit. And now that we know that Britain is indeed standing up to China, we come to the next question. How does the UK plan to do this? How does it plan to stand up to China? By forming an alliance of the world's 10 biggest democracies, the D10. The G7 nations plus India, Australia and South Korea. It's an idea that Boris Johnson has been championing. The UK, as I told you, is hosting the G7 summit in June, and it wants the +3 countries to attend the summit. That makes it 7 + 3, D10, a group of 10 democracies. Let me quickly also tell you what the D10 is all about. It's an alternative to China's 5G dominance. Companies like Huawei. So this D10 will help channel investments into existing telecommunication companies within the member states. It will also create alternative supplies of 5G equipment. Basically, it will try to ensure that the world's biggest democracies are no longer dependent on China for 5G. Boris Johnson's office described the D10 as a group of like-minded democracies to advance shared interests and tackle common challenges. The common challenge, needless to say, is China. How does it view the D10? We turn to the Global Times for the answer. We're talking about China. How does it view the D10? The Chinese mouthpiece says the concept of D10 shows deepening internal contradictions and crises of West. It goes on to say that the aim of the D10 is to, quote-unquote, save the West from the deeply mired world democratic systems and to counter the rising influence of China. This is pretty much on expected lines. China, you see, has been watching very warily as European countries take greater interest in the Indo-Pacific. The UK is only the latest entrant. And D10 is central to its strategy, and India is an integral part of this strategy. In Johnson's own words, India is an increasingly indispensable partner for the United Kingdom. What can the UK get from India? Skilled labour, technological assistance, and a vibrant market. India is not just one of the world's largest telecom markets, but also among the fastest growing. According to a study on India's telecom sector, increase in telecom subscriptions often touch 20 million a month in this country. India also offers the cheapest data compared at current market exchange rates. Here's the mobile data tariff published by the UK's cable.co. It takes into account more than 5,500 data plans across 228 countries. It estimates the price per GB of data in India to be $0.09. Cheap data was the key to India's telecom revolution. Along with the world, India is now steering towards 5G. And if the UK wants to marginalize China in the 5G market, it needs India's help. It needs India's market. A free and open Indo-Pacific will not be possible without the Indian peninsula and its choke points. For an alliance of democracies against China, Britain needs the support of the world's biggest democracy. So to put it simply, India is at the centre of the UK's new vision. How does Britain plan to woo India? A visit may not be enough. Britain needs to go the extra mile. It must start by changing its approach towards India. Every fortnight, we are forced into talking about the UK's colonial hangover, how Indian issues dominate the British Parliament and its discussions, how the UK time and again, in fact, sits in judgment of India. For D10 to be successful, 10D must scrub off the colonial hangover once and for all. It must respect India's sovereignty as much as it endorses India's democracy. It must also respect India's internal matters. The United Kingdom cannot drag Indian issues into its vote bank politics. It cannot politicize Indian farm protests, Indian press freedom. It cannot discriminate against Indian students in the UK, who, by the way, are the third largest international student community in this country, the second largest in the world. As the UK broadens its political and strategic horizon, it must also broaden its mental horizon, create a level playing field, engage with India as an equal, stop racism, and above all, respect boundaries. Meanwhile, in China, a crackdown is underway. This time, big business is on target. Tech giants are being fined and curbed, and companies like Kohler and BMW are facing criticism. What is driving all of this? It's Beijing's will to dictate the rules for corporations. Here's a report.
Chinese tech giants are often called the engine of China's economic growth. But Beijing seems to be hitting the brakes on their exponential growth. In a span of 2 days, Tencent shed $65 billion from its market value. Its stocks tumbled by more than 3% in Hong Kong. What was the trigger? The government of China. It announced a fine. The sum is not significant. The message is. Tencent is the company that owns do-it-all apps like WeChat. It has to pay a fine of $77,000. For a company with a valuation of more than $800 billion, that fine is like a speeding ticket. The bigger concern is what the fine signals. China's crackdown on tech giants. Tencent is just one of them. Chinese regulators have fined 11 more tech companies. This includes Baidu, ride-hailing company DiDi Mobility and SoftBank. In recent months, Chinese regulators have been stepping up scrutiny of the internet sector. The crackdown began with Jack Ma, China's most celebrated tech entrepreneur. Ma's IPO for the Ant Group was halted at the last minute. Many claim the founder of Alibaba was punished for pushing back against Beijing. China claims it was protecting market stability.
The postponement decision is a reflection of the relevant Securities Exchange Department fulfilling its responsibility of self-regulation. Postponing the listing was a decision made by the relevant exchange organization in accordance with the relevant laws and regulations, in order to better protect the stability of the capital market and protect the interests of investors.
Now reports say Alibaba is being asked to part ways with some of its media assets. Apparently, Beijing is concerned over the sway Alibaba holds over public opinion. Even companies from the West can't escape China's scrutiny. Bathroom fixtures brand Kohler and automaker BMW were criticized by Chinese state TV. The reason was facial recognition technology. The Chinese press says these companies had to take permission before putting the technology in their products, and they are in possible violation of privacy rules. The criticism from the Chinese state press is a bit rich, considering the fact that Chinese authorities use millions of video cameras for mass surveillance of its own citizens. Experts say recent actions by Beijing against big tech is an attempt to rein in the new monopolies, a way for the Communist Party to reaffirm its own monopoly on China. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And now let's look at what's happening on the vaccine front. AstraZeneca is still in the headlines, not for the best reasons. First, a major hold-up in the supply chain, and now widespread fear over blood clots. AstraZeneca is having a tough time rolling out its vaccine. On Monday, major European countries, including France and Germany, suspended its use. But others like Belgium and Serbia continue to stick by it. The question is, are European powers playing politics over vaccines? And what has the EU medicines regulator said about AstraZeneca? Our next report tells you.
Europe is a continent divided. 17 countries on one side, 27 on the other. Separating them is the AstraZeneca vaccine. Riled by fears of blood clots, Europe's big powers have suspended its use. Germany, France, Italy and Spain among them. Worldwide, at least 20 nations have paused their rollout. They want more clarity on the jab's safety. It's a huge blow to the global immunization drive. Every day AstraZeneca remains shelved, lives are lost. The expert opinion is clear. The blood clots are unrelated to vaccines. The benefits of taking the shot outweigh the risks.
So while the investigation is ongoing, we are still firmly convinced that the benefits of the AstraZeneca vaccine in preventing COVID-19 with its associated risk of hospitalization and death outweigh the risk of these side effects.
The Europeans are playing wait and watch. On Thursday, the EU's top medicines regulator will analyze the effects of AstraZeneca. They are expected to give a clean chit. Chances are member states will lift the suspension soon after. Unless science isn't the problem here. Could the move to suspend AstraZeneca have been a political one? There is a strong case to be made. For starters, AstraZeneca is a British vaccine. Have been frayed since Brexit. And two, Europe's vaccination drive was stumbling. AstraZeneca was the perfect distraction.
The EU's own regulator has said there's no reason, no grounds to suspend taking the vaccine or the rollout, and that is itself echoed by the World Health Organization. So this vaccine is safe. We respect the processes and the procedures that some other countries may need to go through, but the vaccine is safe and people should certainly continue to take it to protect themselves and protect their friends and family.
So, is the fear over blood clots warranted? There have been 37 cases in 17 million recipients. Experts say it's hardly a trend. And beyond Europe, AstraZeneca remains much sought after. The US has placed an order for 500,000 doses. Australia says it will continue to use the jabs. And on Tuesday, the Thai Prime Minister took the shot himself, just hours after France and Germany announced their suspension. In Europe, Serbia and Belgium plan to continue using AstraZeneca. Europe's inoculation drive is already losing steam. The bloc has given 11 shots per 100 people. Britain is administering more than thrice that. The sudden suspension could also reignite anti-vax sentiments. AstraZeneca was touted as the bulwark against the Wuhan virus. It is cheap and easy to store. Timing is of the essence in vaccination drives, and now is not the time to abandon your most potent weapon. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
In global politics, we often talk about natural alliances, relationships that don't need nurturing. But let me tell you, that's far from the truth. Alliances have to be cultivated. Ties must be rejuvenated. That's how diplomacy works. Under Joe Biden, America is on a mission to do just that. It's no secret, US allies were not fond of Donald Trump. They're expecting a reboot under Joe Biden, a more conventional president. So far, indications are that Biden is game. He keeps saying America is back, and in Asia, he has a chance to walk the talk. Maiden foreign visits are always important. They signal purpose, proximity, and priorities. Biden dispatched his 2 top officials to Asia for their maiden visit, Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin. Their first stop was Tokyo. Blinken and Austin held 2+2 dialogues with their Japanese counterparts. The focus was a free and open Indo-Pacific. So inevitably, the conversation revolved around China. Until now, Blinken talked about the Chinese test, a kind of fierce competition. But on Tuesday, the language changed. Listen to this. He warned of an American pushback against Chinese aggression and coercion.
We're united in the vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific region, where countries follow the rules, cooperate whenever they can, and resolve their differences peacefully. And in particular, we will push back if necessary when China uses coercion or aggression to get its way.
Now remember, this is Asia. This is supposed to be China's backyard. And in that context, Blinken's comments and these diplomatic missions gather more importance. For Japan, the alliance with America is crucial. Around 55,000 US troops are stationed in Japan. For a pacifist country surrounded by rivals, security is paramount. The same goes for America. To tackle China in the high seas, the US needs to deploy carriers and warships, and they need a safe place to harbor. This is where Japan comes in. The Pacific Alliance may not be America's oldest, but in current times, it could be the most consequential. And Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin realizes this.
I know Japan shares our concerns with China's destabilizing actions. And as I have said before, China is a pacing challenge for the Department of Defense. And we know that competing in today's shifting global dynamics can only be done through the spirit of teamwork and cooperation, which are the hallmarks of our alliance with Japan.
Top American officials are in Asia. No doubt China was watching. It released a statement too. Beijing says the cooperation between the US and Japan should not target any third country. It's a bit late for that. After accosting foreign vessels in international waters and making unilateral claims of sovereignty, what else was China expecting? The Asia mission signals a clear policy change in Washington. 4 years back, Donald Trump made Saudi Arabia his first foreign destination as president. His top diplomat's maiden visit was to Germany. But now things are changing. First, a virtual Quad summit, and now an extensive Asia outreach. And that's not all. Blinken and Austin will... In fact, they also met with Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, and Suga will be making a state visit to the US in April. This would make him the first foreign leader to meet Biden at the White House. Another indication of policy recalibration. While China clearly topped the agenda, another rogue state also featured in the talks, North Korea. The US has been trying to reach out to Pyongyang since mid-February, but there's been radio silence from the other side. On Tuesday, Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, broke that silence. A sharply worded statement against the United States. Let me quote from it. A word of advice to the new administration of the United States that is struggling to spread the smell of gunpowder on our land from across the ocean. If it wants to sleep in peace for the coming 4 years, it had better refrain from causing a stink at the first step. So how does America plan to deal with North Korea? Donald Trump thought his personal charm would win over Kim Jong-un. That clearly did not happen. Biden has a different approach. He has refused to meet Kim unless Pyongyang denuclearizes. Frankly, there's no playbook to deal with rogue states. It's trial and error, always has been. Blinken and Austin have completed the first leg of their Asia tour. On Wednesday, they'll fly to Seoul, and from there they part ways. The Pentagon chief will visit India, while Blinken will head to Alaska for talks with Chinese officials. This tour is as much about symbolism as substance. Biden's two top lieutenants shoring up American alliances in China's backyard. The next couple of days could define Sino-US ties for years to come. Talking about the issues that America has to deal with, Iran. Do you know Iran has a missile city? Several missile cities, in fact. But Tehran has provided the world a glimpse of only one. And it's unlike anything we've seen before. It's like a never-ending wine cellar, only that there are missiles instead of wine bottles. Scores of missiles stacked up inside a depot with cemented walls. The images are fascinating. They're also terrifying. Why has Iran released them in public domain now? Here's a report.
In India, we have the city of dreams, Mumbai. In the United States, there's a city of stars, Los Angeles. In Italy, they have the city of canals, Venice. What if we tell you that Iran has a city of missiles? These visuals have been released by the Iranian state media. They show scores of missiles inside an endless underground corridor. No details have been provided about its location, for obvious reasons. We also don't know the date of this footage or how many missiles are stored at this depot. But what we can say for sure is that this is just one missile city among tens of others.
What we see today is a small section of the great and expansive missile capability of the Revolutionary Guard's naval forces.
The state media is calling it a new base of Iran's elite Revolutionary Guard Corps. It says this base also houses electronic warfare equipment like radar, monitoring, simulation, and disruption systems.
These launchers can fire missiles from behind the heights towards the coast. It's no longer necessary to move launchers to the brink of the sea. These launchers can fire while moving, and they are not susceptible to electronic warfare.
Since 2011, Iran has been building underground nuclear facilities across the country. From Mashhad, Tabriz, Baghtaran, and Imam Ali in the north, to Bandar Abbas, Abu Musa Island, and Kohestak along the country's Gulf coastline. Iran's missile program is among the most extensive in the world. The missiles can travel at least 2,000 kilometers, placing much of West Asia, including Israel, within range. In 2020, the Revolutionary Guards Force began building a number of missile cities, warning Iran's enemies of a nightmare. These cities are essentially underground facilities that house missile systems. Unlike military facilities on the surface, which can be tracked using surveillance drones, underground silos are largely untraceable and safe from enemy airstrikes. They provide more firepower to Iran along the Gulf Coast and a tighter control over the Strait of HORMUZ, which is a key shipping route for 20% of the world's oil supplies. The unveiling of this new base comes amid heightened tensions with the United States. Hours before these visuals were released, the Biden administration deployed 2 nuclear-capable strategic bombers to West Asia. Iran's message is clear. It says it does not want war, but will retaliate if and when America makes a move. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
In Italy, a group of legal experts want to correct a miscarriage of justice. The task won't be easy because the case they're talking about is 700 years old. The supposed victim is Dante, the one and only Dante, the Italian poet behind Divine Comedy. 700 years ago, Dante was stripped of a political post that he held. He was sent to exile. 700 years later, his descendant says he was a victim of biased judges and wants to undo this injustice.
They say justice delayed is justice denied. What if the case is 700 years old? That's how long Dante Alighieri, the man Italians call the supreme poet, has awaited justice. His descendants now plan to undo what they call a miscarriage of justice. Globally, Dante is known for producing Divine Comedy, the greatest literary work in the Italian language. But for the city of Florence, he is still a person with a criminal record. It's a fascinating story. The year was 1300 AD. Dante was serving as one of Florence's 9 elected rulers, but this post landed him in trouble. In 1301, Dante found himself on the losing side of a feud between the white and black political factions of Florence. Those with the Pope were part of the black faction. Those with the Holy Roman Emperor were in the white faction. The blacks retook Florence in 1301. The whites were persecuted and tried. Dante was stripped of his post and sent to exile. For the next 20 years, he roamed from one city to another. And shortly before his death in 1321, he completed the Divine Comedy. It gave him global recognition. People began sympathizing with his story. Experts argued Dante was a victim of biased judges. 700 years on, legal experts in Paris want to undo what they call a miscarriage of justice.
Our intention is to verify, not only on the basis of the legal principles universally recognized today, but also on the basis of the law at this time, to find out whether they are sentences handed down after a fair trial, or whether, on the contrary, they are political convictions to eliminate a disturbing adversary, as Dante was for the black Guelphs of the time.
On the 21st of May, lawyers, senior judges and prosecutors will reopen the case. They will assess if the centuries-old verdict against Dante could be the subject of a retrial, or ideally be quashed. Among those seeking justice is an astronomer with a direct bloodline to Dante, and a descendant of the judge who exiled him.
I immediately took it as a fun thing to do, which of course has no consequences because it's not possible. So I said yes, let's see. And so the law firm took care of organizing the day, and we talked a lot about it.
The town hall apologized for my ancestor, so I contacted them, telling them how. As a joke, of course, how dare you ask for an apology for the role of my ancestor? After all, if he hadn't exiled Dante from Florence, Dante would never have written the Divine Comedy.
They say the dead cannot cry out for justice. It is the duty of those living to do so for them. Dante's case may have redefined this saying. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.